So, hi everyone. Welcome to another Sunday Zoom meeting and another podcast episode. If you're listening into the podcast, you can find out more about the podcast here and our meetings by visiting the website www.acimwithkeith.com. And you can find out about the Facebook group and our community and how you get involved in the meetings. And you can find out about paid private mentoring with myself if that's something that interests you. Okay, so what I wanted to, I guess in the group during the week, a few themes came up. One of them is I need do nothing, which we'll address today. And another theme is the present moment, the now. And these are two ideas that are very linked in terms of the metaphysics of A Course in Miracles and in terms of the experience that we can have in its application. So let's, as always, begin with some quotes from the Blue Book. And I'm going to start with lesson 109, which, yes, I have read a few times before, but it's beautiful and it's pertinent to today's discussion. So it's, I rest in God. We ask for rest today and quietness, unshaken by the world's appearances. We ask for peace and stillness in the midst of all the turmoil born of clashing dreams. We ask for safety and for happiness, although we seem to look on danger and on sorrow. And we have the thought that will answer our asking with what we request. I rest in God. Now, the mistake a lot of new people make when they come to the course is that what we're trying to do is we're trying to sort out our mind, we're trying to heal our mind, and then all of our problems are going to go away. And that's not at all what the course is teaching. And I think that's very evident from what we're saying here in this lesson. We ask for peace and stillness in the midst of all the turmoil born of clashing dreams. We ask for rest and quietness unshaken by the world's appearances. We ask for safety and for happiness, although we seem to look on danger and on sorrow. So this is Jesus talking about an invulnerable, unalterable peace that is within us now. And it cannot be touched by dreams. It cannot be touched by the world's appearances. It is unshakable. And it's available to us in this moment. So we'll talk more on that as we go. Let's continue. I rest in God. This thought will bring you the rest and quiet, peace and stillness, and the safety and the happiness you seek. I rest in God. This thought has power to wake the sleeping truth in you, whose vision sees beyond appearances to that same truth in everyone and everything there is. Here is the end of suffering for all the world and everyone who ever came and yet will come to linger for a while. Here is the thought in which the Son of God is born again to recognize himself. I rest in God. You know, the term enlightenment, awakening, self-realization, they're just fancy terms for mankind's always search, which is for happiness and peace, a lasting happiness and peace. You know, so these spiritual terms are just, you know, I guess more refined versions of the search for happiness and peace. And that's what Jesus is talking about here. The happiness that you seek, the safety, the stillness, the invulnerability, the peace, the quiet that you are is here now in this moment, because that's where you can rest in God. I rest in God, completely undismayed. This thought will carry you through storms and strife, past misery and pain, past loss and death, and onward to the certainty of God. There is no suffering it cannot heal. There is no problem that it cannot solve, and no appearance but will turn to truth before the eyes of you who rest in God. Jesus is talking a lot about appearances here. He's very clear that there is no world, that the world is an illusion. But an illusion is not something that doesn't exist. An illusion is something appearing as something other than it is, something which is not as it appears. There is only God. There is only love. You have never left heaven. And this world is simply love only appearing, light only appearing as images that we made up that mean nothing. The message of A Course in Miracles is never that you stand in front of illusions denying their reality, but rather that you overlook appearances to the light of the Christ that you and everyone is. Again, completely undismayed. This thought, I rest in God, will carry you through storms and strife, past misery and pain, past loss and death, and onward to the certainty of God. So we could think about Jesus on the cross, at least the image of Jesus's body on the cross. And we can know Jesus completely undismayed with this thought, I rest in God. Other bodies thought they saw Jesus on a cross. Jesus knew he wasn't there. He rested in God in this moment. I rest in God. It carries you through storms and strife, past misery and pain, past loss and death, and onward to the certainty of God. There is no suffering it cannot heal, because you who rest in God cannot suffer. Elsewhere, Jesus says, what suffers is not part of me. It's just a concept I've made up in my mind. He said to Helen, how can you who are so holy suffer? All your past, but its beauty is gone, because there's no past in the present moment. So to continue, this is the day of peace. You rest in God. And while the world is torn by winds of hate, your rest remains completely undisturbed. This is the difference of what Jesus is teaching in A Course in Miracles. He's not saying you'll be peaceful when the world is all sweetness and light and rainbows and unicorns. He's saying the world is an appearance. It doesn't mean anything. It is all the light of the Son of God that you are, only appearing as things that mean nothing. And all of it is still the light that you are. And so the apparent world torn by apparent winds of apparent hate have no effect on your ability to rest completely undisturbed in God. Yours is the rest of truth. Appearances, there's that word again, cannot intrude on you. They're just images we made up. It's just a faulty formulation of reality, as Jesus says, with no effect on reality. You call to all to join you in your rest, and they will hear and come to you because you rest in God. They will not hear another voice than yours, because you gave your voice to God, and now you rest in him and let him speak through you. This is an idea that we touched on last week in terms of guidance. and knowing what to say and knowing what to do. And we said, when you identify with the self that's made out of stories, the self you made, that is not the Son of God, the apparent thinker of the ego's thoughts, the apparent feeler of the ego's feelings, the apparent, though totally illusory one that the appearances, the happenings are happening to, they're not actually happening to anyone. So when you identify as that, you just have thoughts of lack and need and want translating themselves into more thoughts of lack and need and want. And what Jesus is talking about here is when you identify as the stillness in your mind, the space in your mind, the peace in your mind, that's what it is to rest in God. And from here, you'll just know what the most helpful, loving, effective thing to do in a situation is for everyone concerned with it. Because now thoughts of lack, need, and want are not fueling more thoughts of lack, need, and want. Now, the wholeness that you are, the peace that you are, the stillness that you are is translating itself into right-minded thinking and doing and deciding. And that's what Jesus is saying in this paragraph. There's two dimensions to it. The first thing is that when you rest as this, you see it as the truth of everyone behind the appearances of bodies and what they're doing. You see this peace that is the truth of you, not an insane voice talking to itself, not a self made up of stories of the past. This peace that you always are here now, you see that as the truth of others, and their mind cannot but be healed by it. And so on that level, we call to all to join us in our rest. Someone with that transparent sense of me, when you're in their presence, you feel your own sense of me, which is so painful and lacking. And the source of all your suffering, you feel it becoming transparent. And there's a beingness, there's a peace that arises, which is your right-minded self, the one that always rests in God. So it's contagious. But on the other level, when we rest as this space and this peace and this stillness, it translates itself also into a doing and a deciding and a speaking in the movie, in the images. So that's the two levels Jesus is talking about here. In him, you have no cares and no concerns, no burdens, no anxiety, no pain, no fear of future, and no past regrets. In timelessness, you rest. While time goes by without its touch upon you, for your rest can never change in any way at all. The beingness that you are, the awareness that you are in the Holy Spirit is the changeless dwelling place. It is the quiet center. It is the stately calm. Thoughts and feelings are coming and going, but you're never coming and going. You are the one that sees, that hears, that is aware of these storms coming and going, but you're not coming and going. That's what you are as awareness in the Holy Spirit. Time only exists in the mind. It only exists in our thoughts. There is nothing to a past other than stories about it. And there's nothing to a future except fantasies about it. In the now, when we rest in God, we are outside of time. And that's what Jesus is saying here. In timelessness, you rest. Because you are what is behind all the thoughts and feelings and stories and everything else that's going on. You are the stillness behind that, the unchanging behind that. And that you is not in time. Time is apparently happening within you as this awareness. You rest today, and as you close your eyes, sink into stillness. So he goes on to detail the exercise instructions. We don't need to go into that, but I love that lesson. Let's go to the manual, section 24. It's from Is Reincarnation So? And I just want to read this paragraph, 6. The emphasis of this course always remains the same. It is at this moment that complete salvation is offered you, and it is at this moment that you can accept it. This is still your one responsibility. Atonement might be equated with total escape from the past and total lack of interest in the future. Heaven is here. Remember, we talked about a faulty formulation of reality with no effect on reality. Heaven is here. There is nowhere else. Heaven is now. There is no other time except in thoughts. No teaching that does not lead to this is of concern to God's teachers. Jesus is saying it is in the now you are already resting in God, and all that's required is a recognition of that. But we're all apparently losing ourselves into our stories of past and fantasies and nightmares of the future, and we're not in the present moment. And Jesus is saying this is where it's at. This is the emphasis of the course, and it will always remain the same. It is at this moment complete salvation is offered you. Not a road to salvation, not a partial salvation. In this moment, if you come completely into this moment, that is complete salvation. And that's where we see heaven only appearing as harmless images that aren't real and don't mean anything, and there's no point to them because this is still heaven. Heaven is here. There is nowhere else. Heaven is now. There is no other time. So let's take another. This is lesson 308. The only interval in which I can be saved from time is now. For in this instant has forgiveness come to set me free. The birth of Christ, that's you, is now, without a past or future. He has come to give his present blessing to the world, restoring it to timelessness and love. And love is ever present, here and now. Thanks for this instant, Father. It is now I am redeemed. This instant is the time you have appointed for your Son's release and for salvation of the world in him. Okay, so the same idea there. This is from chapter 13, The Guiltless World, section 4, paragraph 7. It is evident that the Holy Spirit's perception of time is the exact opposite of the ego's. The reason is equally clear, for they perceive the goal of time as diametrically opposed. The Holy Spirit interprets time's purpose as rendering the need for time unnecessary. He regards the function of time as temporary, serving only his teaching function, which is temporary by definition. His emphasis is therefore on the only aspect of time that can extend to the infinite, for now is the closest approximation of eternity that this world offers. It is in the reality of now, without past or future, that the beginning of the appreciation of eternity lies. For only now is here, and only now presents the opportunities for the holy encounters in which salvation can be found. Okay, so chapter 13, the guiltless world. And again, this is section 6, paragraph 8. Now is the time of salvation, for now is the release from time. Time is only apparently happening in the now, but it's just an appearance. There is only now. Even when the future comes, it's now. You can only think about and imagine past now. There's only ever now. So now is the time of salvation, for now is the release from time. Reach out to all your brothers and touch them with the touch of Christ. In timeless union with them is your continuity unbroken because it is wholly shared. God's guiltless Son is only light. All of this entire world, from parties and families to war and famine, God's guiltless Son is only light. There is no darkness in him anywhere, for he is whole. The movie, the appearances, as Jesus was saying earlier, are just the light appearing as things that mean absolutely nothing and there's no point to them, because it's still the light. Everything is you, God's guiltless Son. Not you, the person. There's no you, the person. There is no darkness in him anywhere, for he is whole. So let's go to chapter 18, the passing of the dream. This is section 7. I need do nothing. At no single instant does the body exist at all. It is always remembered or anticipated, but never experienced just now. Only its past and future make it seem real. Time controls it internally, for sin is never wholly in the present. In any single instant, the attraction of guilt would be experienced as pain and nothing else, and would be avoided. It has no attraction now. Its whole attraction is imaginary and therefore must be thought of in the past or in the future. All right, so let's take a little bit of a pause from our readings to address this idea. And I know I've done this before, but this bears repeating. Whenever Jesus talks about the body, and he was saying to us that the body is never here in this moment. It's always anticipated or remembered. And whenever he says body, he's talking about not only the physical body, but the psychological body, the separate self, the ego identity, the self you made that is not the Son of God, and nothing it says or does means anything. It is neither bad nor good. It is unreal and nothing more than that, as lesson 93 tells us. That self is never actually present in the present moment. There is no such thing as you, the person. There is no such thing as you, the separate self, here in this present moment. And so what I'd like you to do, this is only going to take a few moments, so nobody panic. What I would like you to do is, I would like you to look for evidence of you as a separate self, as a person, without recourse to stories from the past or fantasies of the future. I want you to look for evidence of you as a person here now in this moment, this now Jesus is talking about. And can you find any evidence of you here in this moment without stories of the past or fantasies of the future? And there's no evidence. There's just no thingness. There's just an awareness that you are. There's just a space. There's just a stillness without the remembered past or the fantasized future. There is just this. And this is what Jesus is talking to us about. It's just this. And the ego, the mind goes, no, it's not. How could it be just this? And Jesus is going, listen, it's been under your nose the entire time. This is it. Here is salvation offered completely. If you can know yourself as this, what is here now in this present moment. What is here when you look for evidence of yourself as a separate self, as a person in the world, without the stories of the past and the fantasies of the future. What you find here is it. Salvation. The end of seeking. This is what is in the present moment. And it's whole and it's complete. And the only problem, Jesus says you've one problem, and there's one solution to every problem because they're all the same problem. You think you're something other than this. This spaciousness, this limitlessness, this stillness, this peace. This is the Holy Spirit. And this, the truth of you, is the truth of everything and everyone that you look on. And the rest is just appearances of this that mean absolutely nothing, and there's no point to them because there's just this. This beingness, this peace, this space, this stillness, this awareness that you are in the Holy Spirit. There is nothing to seek. This is the resting in God. And there's not even a you that's resting here. There is just this. This is all that's ever present in the present moment. And it's always the present moment. Let's take a few more readings from the course. This is from chapter 18, The Passing of the Dream, section 7. I need do nothing. This is why you need do nothing. It's already this. This is the light that's shining as the truth in all the appearances. You. Not you the person. There's no you the person. You have to make it up out of stories in the past and fantasies of the future. It's just smoke and mirrors. There's just this. Okay, let's take this one. When peace comes at last to those who wrestle with temptation and fight against the giving in to sin. Sin in the course always means separateness and separation, difference. When peace comes at last to those who wrestle with temptation and fight against the giving in to sin, when the light, this light that you are, just this, when the light comes at last, this present moment light comes at last into the mind given to contemplation, or when the goal is finally achieved by anyone, it always comes with just one happy realization. I need do nothing. It's just this. Now, in this moment. No stories of the past can touch it or define it or label it, and no fantasies of the future or nightmares of the future can touch just this now. God's one holy, innocent Son. So to continue, here is the ultimate release, which everyone will one day find in his own way at his own time. You do not need this time. Now listen to what Jesus is saying. You don't need this time. Okay? You could spend the next 20 years out there seeking, but it will always come back to just this. What you are in the present moment cannot be defined by past or future. Again, here is the ultimate release. This is it. Just this, which everyone will one day find in his own way at his own time. You do not need this time. Time has been saved for you because you and your brother are together. Because just this is the truth of both of you. And the rest are just appearances. This is the special means this course is using to save you time. You are not making use of the course if you insist on using means which have served others well, neglecting what was made for you. Save time for me by only this one preparation and practice doing nothing else. I need do nothing is a statement of allegiance, a truly undivided loyalty. Believe it for just one instant and you will accomplish more than is given to a century of contemplation or of struggle against temptation. Just this. There is nothing to do. There is nothing to want. There is nowhere to go. There is just this now. And as soon as you indulge in seeking or resisting, you are no longer resting in God. You have overlooked just this as the truth, the ultimate release. You have refused salvation to identify as an illusion of yourself, and now you're seeking and resisting in order to try and be a holier or enlightened separate self made out of stories. And that search is ridiculous and fruitless and nonsense, because how can you become enlightened as this separate self when the truth of your identity is that you are the light? Jesus says in the Course, ask for the light and realize you are the light, not a person. You've just looked. There's no evidence of a person there in the present moment. There's no person there now, and it's always now. There is only ever one problem, and the answer to the millions of problems you think you have is the same answer, because there's only actually one problem, which is that you don't know you are this. You are overlooking it to clothe yourself in stories of the past and your victimhood and your trauma and how you were treated badly and how you are the victim of the world and how you are broken and needy and wanting and the world has treated you badly, and if it would only treat you a certain way, or you could earn more money, or if your boss was less of it undesirable. And it's all nonsense. 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 You are the light, and now you think you're the darkness looking for the light. Well, you can't find it as long as you think you're the darkness, the self made out of stories. The you in time, the you in the world. There's no you in time. There's no you in the world. There's just this. And the world is just an appearance of this, which is harmless and means nothing. And there's no point to it because all of it is just this. The ultimate release. Everyone will find one way, one day, at his own time. Will you accept salvation now? Or do you need to spend 10 years overlooking just this before you come back and know it was here all the time? Jesus says, enlightenment is but a recognition, not a change at all. What's the recognition? This. Now. The present moment. Ultimate release. You are this, which is the truth of everything. Let's take a couple more. This is from chapter 5, Healing and Wholeness, section 3. And this is paragraph 6. Eternity is an idea of God. So the Holy Spirit understands it perfectly. Time is a belief of the ego. And so the lower mind, which is the ego's domain, accepts it without question. The only aspect of time that is eternal is now. This. But let's be very clear about what Jesus is saying. You are the now. You're not in the now. You are the now. And everything is the now, this ultimate salvation, this the light that is now, is just appearing as bodies that are dying and sick and being born, and war and peace, and the good people and the bad people and the holy people and the unholy people, and all of the politics and the countries and all of the disputes and the agreements, and all of that is the now only appearing as things we've made up. We as consciousness, not we the people. There's no people. That's an appearance. All of that is the now only appearing as things that are harmless, mean nothing, and there's no point to them because all of it is this, the now. Ultimate salvation. Ultimate release. You are this. Okay, so this is from lesson 8, paragraph 2. The one wholly true thought one can hold about the past, it is that is not here. To think about it at all is therefore to think about illusions. Very few have realized what is actually entailed in picturing the past or in anticipating the future. The mind is actually blank when it does this because it is not really thinking about anything. The past has no reality now. The future has no reality now. They are just stories, just thoughts that are meaningless. Now is what is true. Now is the domain of the Holy Spirit. Now is ultimate release and ultimate salvation. To think about anything other than now is to think about illusions. Right. I think I've bombarded you with enough readings for today. So let's throw it open for some discussion and some questions. So if you have a question, you can virtually raise your hand and we shall get to you. And first of all, Eli, my lovely co-host, is there anything we need to address in the chat box?
There is not. So we can go directly to
Wow.
Sherry. Yeah, wow.
Sherry, stage is yours.
Thank you. This really, really spoke to me today. I just wanted to share something. I don't really have a question. Um, I had a pretty rough experience that I brought on myself. My ego brought on myself. Um, Going through being dropped with my insurance, my home insurance, and I had to find a new insurance company. Actually, tomorrow is the deadline. So the past couple of days, I've been really stressed out, and there were 3 companies that I had to choose from, and I had no idea what one to choose, and thinking, I don't, what's going to happen. I went down a rabbit hole of just my ego driving myself crazy. So after asking friends and family, who do you use? Do you know these people? No one knew any of these insurance companies. So I just said, why am I stressing myself out? Why am I struggling? Why am I allowing my ego to take over? And I just started applying the welcoming and the I need do nothing. So I just sat back and I was very quiet and opened my computer, and with the Holy Spirit, I went on the website, and I just it was fluid. It was like, I don't know, it's like I was a puppet and just going through the motions, very calm, very peaceful. And I went through the motions. It was just like one click of a button, and everything was just so serene and so peaceful. And I said, why did I drive myself so crazy for, going through all that, torturing myself for nothing? I just needed to sit back, and I just needed to do it with the Holy Spirit. I need do nothing.
Mhm.
And I'm just so peaceful and so thankful for this. Thank you.
Thanks a million, Sherry. And something I addressed in the group yesterday is that I need do nothing is not Jesus saying fall into apathy. That's a very different energy. Apathy is an ego. Um, it is a response to ego thoughts. And it's ego thoughts of I need to survive as a body, and how do I survive as a body, and what if I can't survive as a body, and what about this body, and I need to survive as a separate self in the world. I'm this good person in an evil world trying to survive. So that's like the evil thoughts that will lead to apathy, and the ego thoughts that say I need the good opinion of other people. I need people to think well of me. What if they don't think well of me? What if they think I'm a bad ego? And that's more ego thoughts, and that'll lead to apathy and fear of interaction with people, and anxiety about interacting with people, and anxiety about doing anything. Because what if I fail at it? That's going to confirm my worst fears, that I really am this inadequate, despicable, guilty, hopeless, undeserving separate self. And what if I can't manipulate the world to be a certain way? So I have a certain amount of money and a certain amount of status, and someone's going to like me, and someone's going to love me, and someone's going to make me feel like I'm not that bad of an ego, even though I hate myself. So that's the ego thoughts, and they lead to apathy. That's a very different, I'm going to do nothing. um, and so, again, none of that's you. Jesus says you can't even judge. All you can do is believe the ego judgments and think they're yours. So that's just ego FM. That's just ego thoughts that are playing there. And that, when we indulge them, when we claim them as our thoughts, when we believe them, when we claim those feelings of hopelessness and self-loathing as ours and not the ego's, then what results in the projection then is a situation where the body does nothing because it's too terrified. It's paralyzed. And all that means is you think you're something you're not. To go back to last week's analogy, you think you're the vampire with vampire problems. And instead, when we really understand what I need do nothing means, it means in the now, I can rest in God. And I am this rest. I am this space. I am this peace. I am this beingness, untouched by stories, utterly untouched by stories. And now, this experience of what I am, this peace, this stillness, this lack of need, this wholeness, translates itself into thinking, and doing, and speaking, and deciding. And so the body will just do what needs to be done in the world without fear, without regret, without guilt, without judgment. It's going to happen. Instead of these thoughts of lack and need and want and terror in case they don't happen, leading to apathy, now this needing nothing. My peace is already established. It was here all along. It was just this. In this moment, this present moment, now I need nothing. And so a wrong-minded decision is born out of lack and need and lack of peace and trying to, do magic, which is solve the problem of my peace where it's not, which is in the world. Solve the problem of my happiness where it's not, which is in the world. And all those wrong-minded decisions are just going to result from that. But when I rest in God, when I come back to just this, now there's no requirements of the world. Now, nothing I do is in order to become peaceful. Nothing I do is in order that I have peace or become whole or become enlightened. That's already established by this, just this, as the truth. That's already established. The seeking is over, and now there's just what apparently needs doing in the world, and that's going to get done. But again, there's no seeking in it. There's no wanting in it. There's no attachment to outcomes in it. Again, happiness has been solved by just this. Brilliant. So that's why because it's something I struggled with myself in my own apparent journey. It was always just this. But in the apparent journey, to realizing it's just this, I did struggle with that apathy versus I need do nothing. And I can see lots of people sort of struggling with that one as well. So it's a very easy trap to fall into the ego's apathy, which is born of fear and lack and need and separateness, and to say, oh, I need do nothing. And that's not the same thing. I need do nothing means I am already happiness. I am already wholeness. I am already peace. And that will translate itself in the projection into the thinking and the doing and the deciding and the speaking. But none of that is a seeking of wholeness or happiness. That is established by the right-mindedness of the present moment, awareness that you are in the Holy Spirit. Just this. Complete salvation now is that it's just this. Super. So I see Jackie has her hand up. Shall we go there next, Eli?
Yes, and then before Louise, there's some stuff in the chat that's come up.
Perfect. Jackie, the stage is yours. Apparently. And you just need to take yourself off mute, Jackie.
I want to thank you again for the message. And I'm understanding the more I practice this, because even as you continue to remind me by stating the just this, I see I have to get, no, I don't have to. You're saying I already am there. I just have to be aware of the just this of peace, wholeness, etc. Even though I feel my family members need a good cuss out every now and then, because that seems to be the only way they understand and get attention. I should realize that peace is also behind them, correct?
Excellent. Yes.
And despite how they might be acting up,
Because it's not them acting up. That's a movie.
it's me.
That's one of the sounds we made. That's not the Son of God, and nothing it says or does means anything at all. It's neither bad nor good. It is unreal and nothing more than that. It is just an appearance. Nobody's in the movie. So that's the movie. And what they are is not in the movie. It is just this, what you are.
So it's not even, you know how you hear different like it's a projection of me. So it's not even me projecting. It just is.
Yeah, the meaning that you're putting on the images, the just thisness that's appearing as images we made up that mean nothing and there's no point to them, the meaning that you're giving to them, that is a projection of what you think of yourself. But that's not what your brother is. Your brother is just this, the present moment, which is the only truth of all the images and the appearances and the apparent bodies and apparent separate selves.
Oh, okay. So they don't even have anything to do with the projection. The projection is me.
Correct.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. But
That,
you know, when you identify as just this and know it as the truth of everyone, now you will automatically do what is the most helpful, loving thing for everyone concerned with the situation. And that may be that in the movie, cussing them out is what's appropriate.
mm,
However, it's not whether there's a cussing out that's going to happen in the appearances or whether it's not. It's
mhm,
what is its source?
mhm.
Is it frustration with them as the movie character and an
Yes.
attempt for me then to be the hero of the dream
Mm,
as another movie character that's going to
wow.
accomplish its means by cussing people out? Or have I changed my mind? Am I no longer identifying with a movie character? Because the movie character is just made out of stories. In the present
Mm,
moment, there's just a present moment awareness that you are just this. And if I'm identified as that, then I will just know what the most helpful, loving, effective thing to do in the situation is. And it might be cussing someone out.
mm. I'm definitely going to you're going to put this on YouTube for me
I am
to.
indeed. I am indeed.
And then in the beginning, you said that how you came up with this subject is during the week, things came up. During the week, you have programs during the week, or what is that?
No, there's a Facebook group where we have discussions and questions. So are you on
Oh,
Facebook?
yes, I am. And I
Yeah.
am part of the group. I just haven't
Okay.
seen
No
you
worries. You can catch
up
up.
as.
But we've just been discussing these things, the questions that came up during the week, and that's why we're addressing them here now.
Oh, well, I'm definitely going to go over it. Thank you again, you
Yeah,
all. Thank you so much.
not at all. Thanks a million, Jackie.
Okay.
So, Eli, what should we address next?
Yes, in the chat, this is anonymous, so I'll just read this to you. I seem to and welcome my temptation to be wrong, yet my past memories are coming up more than ever as I watch an ovarian tumor growing in the body. Why is this rage getting stronger the more I realize that I've been doing what I've been doing with the body all these years?
Read that for me one more time, please, Eli, if you don't mind.
Okay. I seem to see and welcome my temptation to be wronged, yet my past memories are coming up more than ever as I watch an ovarian tumor growing in the body. Why is this rage getting stronger the more I realize what I've been doing with the body all these years?
Because everything is for your own best interests. Everything is for your own best interest. Everything is so you can come to the realization of what you are, which is just this. Everything is so that the unresolved guilt and shame and trauma and self-loathing and self-hatred and fear, so all of that can come to the surface. And the movie is going to show you the appearances that mean nothing at all and there's no point to them. It's just this appearing as that. The wholeness of just this only appearing as that. And you're going to project everything you haven't healed in yourself out onto a movie of a body that's sick, on a past that hasn't happened. You're going to project onto just this wholeness, this light appearing as images that we made up and mean nothing. Everything that you think they mean, all of it, and whatever feelings are coming up have got nothing to do with the appearances because they mean nothing. All of it is to do with your feelings about yourself because you think you're a vampire. If we use last week's analogy, because you think you're a separate self, because you think you're a body in the world instead of just this. You think the image is real. What you are is just this, appearing as everything. And what we do is we misidentify with one of the forms that mean nothing. And then because we think we're something we're not, all this self-hatred and loathing and this past that never happened, and we've claimed it as our identity, and now we're suffering and we're in pain. Okay. And then when you look on just this, the light, God's one holy Son only appearing as everything that you see, and whatever your response to it is, that's projection. It's already inside of you because of what you think you are, but you're not that. You're this. And that's why I always say we begin by allowing and welcoming whatever is coming up inside of us, because it's got nothing to do with what's happening in the movie, and it's nothing to do with the past. So it's coming up to be healed. This nonsense that's got nothing to do with what you are, it's just this. And it's coming up so it can be healed, so you can return to what you are that's just this, and so it can evaporate for all eternity. And so the way we return to what we are as a present moment awareness, as the now, as beingness, is we do nothing about what's coming up to be healed. Nothing. That's what we do. At the apparent beginning, which never happens, the separation, Christ seems to separate from the one mind of God and Christ as a oneness joined as one, the oneness of heaven, where there is no other. And it appears that a separateness takes place. Now it appears that the separated Son of God has destroyed oneness to be me. And then this consciousness, it splits again into the ego and it says, yep, definitely, separateness is real. And also it separates into the Holy Spirit. And what does the Holy Spirit do about this apparent separateness? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. The Holy Spirit, which is just the sane part of our mind, consciousness is mind, and you are consciousness. There's no such thing as a person. You've looked for evidence of it today and it's not there. You are consciousness. And what does right-minded consciousness do about the ego's movie and the ego's thoughts and the ego's feelings? Nothing. Because it is all wholeness. It is all the light. It is all just this, only appearing as things we made up. And they don't mean anything and there's no point to them. And so we do nothing with them. We allow and welcome. And as we do that, this awareness that you are, this present moment awareness that you are, this beingness, it begins to separate out from the story of me, the body, with the past, the future, this innocent victim. It begins to separate out. And there is an awareness, a stillness, a peace that rises in our mind. It's the peace of non-resistance, and it's the peace of non-interference, non-judgment. It's allowing the ego to be exactly what it is and do nothing with it. And that's what puts us back in touch with our right-mindedness, with the Holy Spirit. Because remember, what the Holy Spirit does with the ego is nothing. Because if you do something about an illusion, you give it an apparent reality. That's why I'm blue in the face saying you never fight the darkness. What do you do with the darkness? Nothing, because it's just the light only appearing as darkness, but it's still the light. And so you do nothing about the appearances, nothing. Or you make them real. You deny the light that they are, and you make the appearances real, and then you set out to fix them, which is nonsense, because they're just mirages. You can't fix a mirage. And so the allowing and welcoming, first of all, brings a peacefulness with the non-peace being there. Now, there's peace in our mind as well as this non-peace. But then the real important step, and this is the holy instant. This is, as Jesus says, when you join your perception to the Holy Spirit's, is when you make your stand as the peace, as just this, undefined by stories, not in a body, not in time, not in the world, this, within which the world of appearances appears to be happening. The truth of the world of appearance is this. We make our stand as the space, as the peace, as the stillness, as the wholeness. And then the darkness collapses. So what do we do with the darkness? Nothing, ever. You see through it to the light. This is the practice A Course in Miracles is leading you to, where the world becomes transparent. Even when you're in the real world, your eyes will still report seeing the world. But it no longer blocks the light from you. It's no longer shielding what is as the truth behind all the apparent images, the harmless images. The world, your apparent body, you don't have one, but the apparent appearance of one, all the other bodies, they no longer shield you from the light of what is. The peace, the indestructibility, the ultimate release, the ultimate salvation of just this. And that's why Jesus says the teachers of God, they watch the dream figures come and go, shift and change, suffer and die, and they're not deceived by what they see. They're not deceived by the images. They know it's just this. This, the present moment, only appearing as things we made up that mean nothing, because it's just this, the present moment that is God's one, holy, innocent, invulnerable, indestructible Son. So our allowing and welcoming of what's apparently happening in the world, the apparent thoughts that are apparently happening, the apparent feelings that are apparently happening, we welcome and we allow them, because in doing nothing, we feel our identity as just this. We feel our identity as the Holy Spirit, not the person. All of the suffering is apparently arising because there's a belief in a person that's made out of stories that's never here in the present moment. And as soon as we undo our mistaken identification for the ego like that, for separateness, a separate me, a story of me, the innocent victim, once we let that go by doing nothing with it, by allowing it, by non-resistance, non-interference with it, what do we do with the ego? Nothing. If you do nothing with the ego because it's not you, then you feel what you are that's not the ego, that is resting in God, that needs do nothing, just this, only appearing as a multiplicity of things that aren't real, just things we made up that mean nothing and there's no point to them, because everything is already wholeness, everything is already light. But we got to step out of the mistaken identification with separateness. And we do that by non-interference, non-judgment. Jesus says it's, how does one awaken? He says, well, it's a dream of judgment. So you judge not and you'll awaken. That doesn't mean that the judgments of your ego have to stop. They won't. It means you're not judging the ego's judgments. And in that, you experience what you are that's not the ego. Again, when you get to the real world, which is already here, it's already now, it's just this. But in the real world, that is not the cessation of thoughts. Thought will still apparently happen, but it's just this, only appearing as thoughts that mean nothing and there's no point to them. And there's no sense of judgment of the thoughts. They're just known that they're not real. They don't mean anything. They're just part of just this, appearing as the atonement. So again, when we get to the real world, that doesn't mean there's no thoughts. There'll be a heck of a lot less, but it doesn't mean that there's no thoughts. It's just that they are, like everything else, seen as just this, only appearing as something that means nothing and there's no point to it. See, it's the end of judgment. The real world is the end of judgment. It's not the end of thoughts. It's the end of judgments about the thoughts. It's the end of seeing them as anything other than just this, only appearing as thoughts. Just like the world is just this, only appearing as a world, but it means nothing and there's no point to it. That's the real world. So we got to spend our time before that taking ownership of all the feelings and the thoughts that come up in ourselves, because they've got nothing to do with the images, because they don't mean anything and there's no point to them. Whatever meaning we think they have, we've given them. And it's just a projection of what we think about ourselves as an ego, but you're not an ego. So allowing and welcoming, it's a very powerful way, not of fighting the darkness, of not fighting the darkness. Only in the not fighting of the darkness, only in the doing nothing about the ego, the appearances that mean nothing, do we feel our identity in the Holy Spirit that from the very beginning did nothing. And the doing nothing about the ego is what has already sealed the ego's fate. See, what we did when we chose the ego and thought we were the ego is that we didn't do nothing about it. We called it sin. We called it evil. We called it the destruction of heaven. We called it punishable. And we made a whole world to try and escape from that sin, guilt, and terror, to try and block it out and not have to deal with it. This thing that nothing should be done about. This thing that should have only been laughed at. That's what the Holy Spirit's doing nothing is. It's the laughing at the ego. because it's just the light of Christ appearing as ridiculous things that mean nothing and there's no point to them. They're neither bad nor good. They're just unreal. It's all the light of Christ. Separateness never happened. That's the joke. That's the joke. That's when we finally laugh. Into eternity, where all is one, there crept a tiny mad idea of separateness, at which the Son of God remembered not to laugh. When do we laugh? None of this is real. None of this is happening. It's all just a faulty formulation of heaven, the heaven you are. Just this. And none of it means anything. And so we have to undo all the meaning we've put onto it because it doesn't mean anything. That's the healing of our own mind. It's the undoing of our guilt. And anytime we go back to rest in God, what should I do about my ego? Nothing. That's the sacred solution to everything. What do I do about my ego? Nothing. Because it's nothing. We never fight the darkness. So going back to the original question, whatever's coming up in you is coming up in you so you can heal it and come closer to knowing that what you really are is just this. Invulnerable, innocent, outside of time and space. Just this, the truth that is shining in all the apparent things that mean nothing and there's no point to them. It is the wholeness. It is the light of Christ. You are shining as the truth in all the appearances. Nothing is separate. It's all one. Unity alone is not a thing of dreams. What are dreams? The appearances. And the only thing that's true about the appearances is that it's all one thing. The unity, the light. But you must step out of your mistaken identification as the thinker of the ego's thoughts and the feeler of the ego's feelings and the one that the apparent happenings are happening to. They're not happening to anyone. No one's in the movie. It's made out of what you are, just this. But no one is, there's no one to be defined by it. Nothing's happening to anyone. Because the truth of everything and everyone is just this. Present moment. The peace, the stillness. And so what you do with all the darkness that's coming up is nothing. You allow it to be. You welcome it being there. And you feel this peace in your mind. But now your next step is understanding this is the peace that you are. It's just this. You're not a person. You're not a thinker of thoughts. You're not a feeler of feelings. You're not a one that the happenings are happening to. Nothing's happening to anyone. They're just images. And so it's really that second step that's crucial. And, until it could be that we just need to allow and welcome until we are ready to make that shift. And that's what it means to accept the Holy Spirit's perception. So we may not immediately be ready to stop identifying with a person, a separate self that doesn't exist ever in the present moment, just made out of stories. We may not be ready to do that straight away, but we can allow and welcome. And you do that until you're ready to let go of your false identification as separate. To be just this, that needs to do nothing, that's already whole. And then the whole thing collapses. The whole house of cards of the ego's upset collapses. The guilt can't stand. And that's why forgiveness looks and waits and judges not. It does nothing. It does nothing. This is what, in my private coaching with people, I have to really push so hard and repeat and slap people around to get this into their heads. Because they're mad into this. What's my formula and what should I do and how do I get rid of it? And the answer is nothing. 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 Allow the appearances to be what they are. They're just appearances. They've no power over you unless you try and fight them, unless you resist them, or unless you try and cling to them. Now, it seems like they have a control over you because you've made them real. They're not real, but you've made them real for you, and you're trapped in it. Such an important point. What do I do about things? How do I fix the darkness? Nothing. Look through it. It's just the light only appearing as images that mean nothing. Everything's already whole and complete. You're just making the images real. You're not seeing the unity. Things aren't transparent for you yet, where you just see the one unity shining in everything, the unity that you are. So it's very important that when the darkness rises, that we undo projection. We have to stop saying the world did this to me, the past did this to me, I'm like this because of what happened to me when I was a child. Nonsense. None of that's here now. We undo projection. Whatever is coming up is just the sin, guilt, and fear of separateness, but you're not separate. And so you allow and welcome that without saying the world did it to you, without saying it's because of what a body did in the past or what your body did in the past. None of that's true. All of that is just the darkness of thinking you're separate, thinking you're one of the images that you made up, instead of what is apparently made out of, the light. And so we drop the stories. None of them are true here now in this moment. And it's only ever this moment. So we drop projection and we allow the darkness. We do absolutely nothing with it. We welcome it. We allow it. And in that, we feel that it has no power over us. It was never anything. It was nothing. There was never anything to do about nothing. And in that realization, it can't stand. The illusion must fall. Everything is already whole and complete. I rest in God. I need do nothing. I've accepted salvation now. Ultimate release now. Always available now. All I have to do is rest in God. Not as a self made out of stories. So thanks a million for that question. Eli, what should we do next?
Okay, we'll take two more from the chat and then we'll go to Louise.
Okay, and then we will, so we have Lois and we have Tanya and Jackie probably
Lois,
has spoken. Yes. I don't think, maybe Jackie's hand is still up. And Sharon.
It was lowered.
Oh, okay, right. So Jackie, here's another question. Yeah. So we have 4 more questions to deal with live, and we have, is there any more in the chat box? Is there just one, or is there more?
No, there's more. We can, in the chat, just wait, I'll scroll down.
Let's do the chat and then we go to the live ones. How about that?
Okay, and the final one in the chat will be Kirsty if you're after drawing a line, and then we can do the raised hands and then you can call it a day. Okay.
Perfect.
Well, let's go back up here. Okay, this is from Lori Murchison. She says, Keith, I recall hearing that bad dreams at night are the Holy Spirit releasing guilt. True? Partially true? Or balderdash?
Yeah, but the bad dreams now, which are just what is, just this, appearing as war and suffering and famine and death and sickness and disease, ultimately, it's all for your own best interest. Once you align with the Holy Spirit, because whatever feelings, like, it's not true, it's just images. It's all still Christ, invulnerable, untouchable, innocent, whole. Nothing is here suffering or dying or being born. None of it's real. It's just appearances. All of it is the indestructible Christ that you are, only appearing as images that mean nothing, and they're harmless and they're not true. And so whatever reaction you're having to the appearances that mean nothing in the world, or the appearances that mean nothing in your mind, it's all you. It's all your stuff that needs to be healed. It's got nothing to do with the world. There's no world. It's all Christ just looking like a world, but it doesn't matter because it's not real and it's all still Christ. It's the light that you are. And so whatever is coming up is, so everything is for your own best interests because of what's coming up in you now to be healed. So it was unconscious, it was unhealable, it was unaccessible. And now, apparently, in response to images that mean nothing, we just made them up, and that there's no point to them and they've no meaning. In response to that, now you're going to go, that's evil, that's wrong, that's bad, and you're going to get all these adrenaline rushes, and you're going to feel this anger and fear and hatred, and all that's you. Got nothing to do with the appearances or the nightmare. All that is just the upset and the unpleasantness of thinking you're separate, but you're not. So if you like, that is just the trauma of being a vampire. And the solution is you're not a vampire. You are this. And none of the trauma can stand. So in answer to your question, yes. Doesn't matter where the images are. They mean nothing. And if there is something coming up in you, then it's got nothing to do with the images and everything to do with what needs healing in your mind. And so, yes, it's for your own best interests. And therefore, it is part of the Holy Spirit's curriculum for you. So thanks for that question. What else should we go to in the chat box, Eli?
Okay, we have Anne. Someone did answer her question, but it was directed at you, so I'll read it to you.
Mm-hmm.
Do you do meetings Saturday too? You mentioned a group yesterday.
Do I do meetings Saturday as well? No. And a group, I'm talking about the Facebook group. So I think that's the, am I right there, Eli? Am I assuming that's the question?
That was the answer someone gave her.
Yes.
And
Okay,
yes.
fair enough. Good.
Yes.
Anything else in the chat box?
Yes, this is from Yane. He said it's not a question, but he wanted to share an experience. So I feel like losing identity as the ego. The separate self I thought I made has been afraid of this, not knowing who I am in the world. I welcome this and come back to realizing myself. The ego in me is crumbling, no friends, gaining weight, not motivated to do things I used to do. I'm determined to welcoming and coming back to the now.
Yeah, look, that's not you. Okay, that's just an appearance. That's just what's apparently happening. So don't identify as the one that's got no friends and that's like overweight and that's in the world and that's seeking now to become something. Okay, so only the ego is seeking and resisting. You need do nothing. Remember, salvation is for the taking now. Now. So again, don't identify as the vampire, to go back to last week's analogy. Don't identify the vampire and go, I, the vampire, am on a path, and I, the vampire, I'm in this situation, and I, the vampire, want to get to that situation. So that's the only mistake there is thinking you're a vampire. The only mistake there is thinking you're separate, that you're in the movie. So it's very important to understand that, it's not the separate self. It's not Keith that allows and welcomes. It is in the allowing and welcoming I undo my mistaken identification as the separate self Keith and experience what I am as right-minded consciousness. So again, I'll say that again because that's important. Allowing and welcoming. I know it might seem that way in the beginning stages of it with the allowing and welcoming, but ultimately it is the Holy Spirit in your mind, which is you, right-minded you. It is the Holy Spirit in your mind that does nothing. Sacredly, powerfully. It is the Holy Spirit that does nothing. And so again, it's not that I, Keith, allow and welcome my, Keith's emotions and feelings so I, Keith, can be a holy ego. That's the trap. There's no Keith. That's the release in the present moment. That's just this. The full release, full salvation now. There is no such thing as Keith in the present moment, in the now, and it's always the now. There is just this. And so the allowing and the welcoming, you know, even if it seems in the beginning that I, Keith, am going to allow and welcome these thoughts and feelings, you know, separates what I am that's not a thinker of thoughts and a feeler of feelings. And that's what's important. That's the power. That's the joining of your perception to the Holy Spirit. That's looking at the ego and doing nothing about it because it's nothing. That's where all the power is. Now, again, it's very easy to trap ourselves and still have the ego's thoughts of nobody likes me, nobody wants me, I should stay away from people in case they reject me, and all of this is what I'm doing, and this is my plan, and this is my job, and you know, I'm here and I'm not doing anything, and I'm sort of putting on weight because I'm comfort eating to sort of to anesthetize myself to the pain of being separate, to anesthetize myself to the pain of thinking I'm a separate self, and then to say, okay, I'm doing all this for a spiritual purpose. There's no spiritual purpose. You're already just this. Once you're on a journey, you've lost the plot. Salvation, full salvation, is now. And it's that I'm not the body that's just an appearance. I'm not the stories that are just an appearance. I'm not the thoughts and feelings that are just an appearance. I am this, the light that's appearing as everything. And the everything doesn't matter because it's all the light that I am. And when really this is what I identify with, then the body mind in the dream, the game avatar, Keith, isn't going to be apathetic. It's going to be extending the peace, the joy, the oneness, the wholeness in the movie to all the movie characters. It's not going to need anything in the world. It doesn't matter what the heck happens in the images. Is it war? Is it getting crucified? What is it? It doesn't matter. The character in the dream is simply going to be a projection of the wholeness and the peace that I know I am already now, full salvation by knowing just this. And so the character in the movie is just going to extend that. And is going to behave with forgiveness and is going to behave with extending that to absolutely everything it apparently comes in contact with in the movie. So again, it's just another way. So thanks for the question, because it's a really important way of hammering home this idea that apathy is not something you're doing to become spiritual. It's not something you're doing to become enlightened. You are the light. If you're doing something to become enlightened, you've missed the point. Come back to the present moment, to just this. It's just this. There's nothing else. It's just this. Okay, so thanks for that question. Anything else in the chat box before we move on, Eli?
Yes, we have two more in the chat, and then
Cool.
we can move on to the hands raised. This one was to be anonymous. So could one say that every apparent memory or thing which appears on the screen has as its purpose healing by realizing who I am, Son of God?
So the first thing to understand about memories is they're not real. There's no reality to them. They're just images and they don't mean anything and there's no point to them. But yes, Jesus says everything is for my own best interests. So again, not because the memories are real, not because the past ever happened, because it was only ever just this in the present moment. So not because it's real, not because it means anything, not because there's any point to it, but because whatever is coming up for you, whatever feelings are coming up for you with those images is coming up so you can heal it. So again, that's something we talked about last week, is that, workbook lesson number 1, nothing I see means anything at all. The images don't mean anything, ever. No point to them. It's just the light of Christ appearing as things that are meaningless. It's just a movie of separateness, and it doesn't mean anything because there's no such thing as separateness. It's just the light. All of it is still the light. The workbook lesson number 2, I've given everything I see all the meaning it has for me. So all the images that mean absolutely nothing because they're not real, it's just a movie of separateness and there's no such thing as separateness, I now will project onto it something that I have disowned in myself. Evil, wrong, bad, unholy. And again, Jesus is saying, okay, even though the images don't mean anything, even though you've given them a meaning they don't have, because you wouldn't look at it in yourself about yourself, he's saying now it's for your own best interest because of what you just did. Because what you didn't know you felt about yourself now is coming up. And if you don't blame the images, if you understand that they mean nothing, and whatever's coming up in you is your stuff for healing, now it's for your own best interests, so it can be healed. And all you have to do is not blame the movie, not blame the images that mean nothing. They don't mean anything. And all you have to do is you have to allow it to come up. Instead of fighting it and trying to shove it down and trying to project it and trying to get rid of it, you allow and you welcome it. And you feel the invincibility of what you are that allows and welcomes. And the darkness can't stand against it. The gates of hell can't stand against that non-judgment and non-resistance, against the power of doing nothing about the ego because it's not you and it's not real. So one more question in the chat box, Eli.
Yes. If I can find it again. Okay, it's from Kirsty, and she says, what would you say was the most helpful Wapnick download you've listened to from FACIM?
Well, that's a difficult question. I don't know. I always particularly liked, just because there was some beautiful writing. Well, I've always preferred listening to Ken than reading him. It always seems a bit dusty and professory to me when I read it, and yet I love listening to it. I did like, I think Form and Content is very good. At the time, Rules for Decision was very pivotal and crucial for me. And Rules for Decision is about everything we're talking about, that you do nothing. Forgiveness is still and quietly does nothing. It looks at the images, whether they be a world or whether they be thoughts or whether they be feelings, and it does nothing at all. Just looks and waits and judges not. And so Ken really goes into that in a lot of detail. I particularly loved Rules for Decision. And if you wanted to get a good grounding on the metaphysics of the Course and the apparent separation and everything else, I think Rules for Decision is a masterpiece. However, one of his later works, some possibly his last one or very close to it, was on death and dying. And that's just superb. It's Ken at the very pinnacle of his understanding and embodying of the Course message on death and dying. So that's not available as a book. It's available as a talk, and it's a long one. It's an academy class, and it's a little bit more pricey, but it's worth the saving for. On Death and Dying is absolutely superb. Yeah. Right, so we are done with the chat box, and Lois, take yourself off mute. The stage is yours, apparently.
I'm just dissing.
Yes.
I want to say thank you so much for everything I feel like through you guys that I'm starting to get this. So I'm just listening. And one of the things, my big decision was to sell my house here. So many
Imagine.
memories.
Yeah.
And they're just this, it's nothing. So I wanted to thank you. And I don't think I have a question anymore because I think you
No
answered.
worries.
So
Oh,
again, I am so grateful. Thank you so much.
oh. Best of luck with the sale and the new house, Lois. It's a new chapter. It's a new beginning, and apparently
Yeah, that's fun. And I'm just
everything
dissing.
is
So okay.
absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. Oh, look, the best of luck, Lois, and thanks a million.
Thank you. Thank you.
Tanya, the stage is now yours, apparently.
Yes, thank you so much, Keith. So what's kind of been coming up for me and all this is two of the big things are either somebody I get triggered or maybe I have this thing I want to do. Is the best thing really for me because normally I sort of scramble trying to figure out what to do or how to handle. What I sort of, what came to me is to try to do like almost like a micro meditation where I just practice, going into no thought in the present moment. I can't think of much else
Okay,
I can
yeah.
do. Yeah.
Hold that thought for me, just in case there's something that I don't address. But I want to stop you there. Again, you don't have to stop thinking. Okay, don't even set that as a goal for yourself. It's ridiculous. And even in the real world, there'll still be thoughts, and all the way to the real world, there's still going to be judgments and preferences apparently happening, right? So again, it's not about fighting thoughts. It's not about fighting preferences. It's not about fighting judgments. It's about understanding that they don't mean anything. This is such a crucial understanding because no one is going to get to the real world, which is just this. No one's going to get there as long as you think you have good thoughts and bad thoughts. All of them, as Jesus says, are equally applicable to today's lessons because none of them are your real thoughts. Because there's no thoughts in just this, but there is an appearance of thought, and it doesn't mean anything, and there's no point to it because it's still the light. Okay, so in the same way, we have to get to a place where we don't consider that the war part of the movie is bad and the partying part of the movie is good. No, because an illusion is an illusion is an illusion. It is all the light. It is all wholeness. It is all peace already. Full salvation in this present moment is that everything is just the light appearing as a darkness that's not real, and we do nothing about it because it's still the light. We allow all the images to become transparent, and we see the light of Christ, the one same light of Christ shining as the truth behind all the appearances, including thoughts and thinking, which are not evil and not bad. They're just unreal. And so you don't have to hate your judgments or think that they're evil or bad or sinful. You just have to not judge them. They don't mean anything. And
Kind of.
in order for you to know and maintain your identity as what is, it doesn't mean you can't have any thoughts for the rest of your life. You just have to know that they're just what is appearing as thought, and it doesn't mean anything, and there's no point to it. It's already wholeness. It's just that the appearance means nothing, but it's still wholeness. This is the point Jesus wants to make to us when he says it's a dream of judgment. If you want to awaken, you have to judge not, and you'll awaken. But it doesn't mean there can't be judgments and preferences going on in the movie, but you're not in the movie. And so all you have to do is not judge it. See it all as the light of Christ. So that's a really important point. It was another one that came up in the group yesterday. I answered a question about it. It's not about not having thoughts. It's about understanding that they don't mean anything. But the minute you put a meaning on what doesn't mean anything, that's what you got to take back and undo. So you can look at whatever it is, whether it's a thought or a feeling or a war, and understand that it's just the light of Christ only appearing as things that mean nothing, because it's all still the light of Christ and all is well. And so it's the same with war. It's the same with death. It's the same with illness. It's the same with birth. It's that we have to, by knowing what we are, allow all of that to become transparent and no longer hiding from us the light that it is, because the images mean nothing. And it's the same with thoughts and feelings. We're never going to get to the real world by fighting them or hating them or judging them or trying to fix them or change them. It's by understanding it's just the holy nothingness only appearing as something that means nothing, and there's no point to it. We don't need to have an opinion on it. And then we don't make it real. And so again, we just do what the Holy Spirit did in the very beginning, which is look at the ego and do nothing about it, because it's nothing. So I hope that makes sense. Was there another part to your question, or have I addressed it in that?
That was really great. I was sort of more about like what is my once I've had the thought, am I sort of detaching? Am I stepping back from it, disidentifying?
So spiritually speaking, there are two parts to this. The first thing is to understand that in order to experience what you are, it has to become separated out from what you're not. And so what we say is, well, thoughts are coming and going and changing all the time, so they are not essentially what you are. So you're not thoughts. And then we go, well, feelings are coming and going and they're changing all the time, and what you are isn't coming and going and changing, so you're not feelings. And then we go, the body is changing and growing and replacing itself, and all the cells getting replaced every few years, and you're not changing, you're not, so you're not the body. So there's this process of stepping back into the present moment outside of stories, to experience your essential self, which is just this. What you found when you tried looking for a separate self in the present moment without the stories, just this. So that's what we want to do, is we want to, first of all, and the reason we do that is so you can understand that even though thoughts and feelings in the world are made out of you, the light, you do not share the limitations of the images. You are unqualified by any of it. You are unlabeled, undefined by any of it. Nothing the images are doing has any effect on what you are that the images are apparently made out of. So the first thing we do is we go, I'm not the thoughts and feelings. And allowing and welcoming allows me to experience that, and I'm not the body. And that's the first thing, is that I now experience what I am that rests in God. I now experience, that I need do nothing in order to be happy and whole. The seeking has ended. And now I experience what I am. But the next step, because again, this salvation, Jesus says, that is now fully available now, it's not complete until I extend the Holy Spirit. So the first thing you got to do is realize that you are the Holy Spirit. You are right-minded consciousness and not wrong-minded consciousness. That's the first step. But it's not complete until you extend that to all the images. What I am, that's just this, the stillness, the peace, the beingness, the wholeness. That release is not complete until I can see it in everything and everyone. And so, again, Our first step in the allowing and welcoming is the understanding that I'm not my thoughts and feelings, and they don't define me, and I'm unqualified by them, unchanged by them. That's the first step. But the second step then is seeing that there's nothing to those thoughts and feelings other than the light that you are, only appearing as thoughts and feelings. It's already wholeness. It's already completeness. It is already the reflection of heaven and consciousness. So again, we must fully abandon judgment. And that even means abandoning judgment of judgments that are not ours. They're just the ego's judgment. And what do we do with them? Nothing, because they're not ours. So again, step one is I'm not what's coming and going. I'm not my body. I'm not my thoughts. I'm not my feelings. I am not the stories. I am what is here now in this moment. I am just this. And then, like I say, the freedom, the salvation, this full salvation, it's not complete until I extend the Holy Spirit and see what I am as the truth in everything and everyone, and in all the thoughts and the feelings, even if it's irritation or anger or cussing someone out. It's just appearances. It's just the light that I am, only appearing as that, but it's still the light. It's still wholeness. Everything is already wholeness. Again, we have to learn to see the transparency of things. Everything in the world, all the apparent people, we need to see the transparency of them, but also the thoughts and the feelings and the stories and the preferences in our mind. We don't have to do anything about them. They have to become transparent, so we see it all as the one light, only appearing as this dance, this comedy dance, because it's not about anyone. Does that make sense?
It makes a lot of sense, and I'll have to really process it. Thank you so much.
Yeah, it's about fully disengaging from judgment, which doesn't mean we have to get rid of our thoughts and fight our thoughts and change our thoughts. We just have to realize they're just what wholeness looks like in this moment. So again, even if there's judgmental thoughts, all our job is to not judge them, because they're not yours. You can't judge. And so you separate yourself out from the judgments by allowing and welcoming them. And then you are this thing that can't judge. And then the judgments can't stand. They'll vanish of their own accord. But it's really, like I say, until we can know ourselves as this beingness, this peace, this stillness, this salvation that's available now, full salvation, full release. By knowing that, now we don't have to go calling our thoughts evil or bad, because that's ridiculous. There's no such thing. It's all the light only appearing as things that mean nothing, and our own job is to do nothing about them and experience what we are that does nothing and needs nothing, that is wholeness and completeness. So thanks for that, Tanya. Did you have a second question, Jackie?
Yes, I did.
Go
But
ahead.
first, speaking on something you just said, I still have a
Yep.
question. In
Mhm.
other words, for example, as I see the happenings in the world, like the war in Gaza, the killings in my neighborhood, etc., see them as holy nothingness. See behind the happenings, in other
Yes.
words.
Yes.
Okay.
Watch the dream figures come and go, shift and change, suffer and die, and be not deceived about what you're seeing, because they're just images and Christ can't be crucified.
Okay.
And so it's for all of the dream figures that are coming and going, shifting and changing, suffering and dying. It's to allow them to become transparent, so we can see the one light of the Christ that we are as the truth in everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And the images aren't real.
And even the everyone that you're saying, those images aren't real. It's just the light. Okay.
Yeah, the light of the Christ that we are, we in our madness as consciousness, wrong-minded consciousness, drunk on the belief in separateness and fear of God, we made up these images.
Okay.
And we made it up out of the light that we are.
Okay.
And we made these horror images so that we could look apparently outside of ourselves and go, the evil is there, the ugliness is there, the horror is there. That's what the fear is about. And we did that so we wouldn't, as consciousness, have to acknowledge that all of that was within. So we made up sin, guilt, and fear in order to protect ourselves from the light of God. We made separateness real in order to cement it as true. We made up sin, guilt, and fear, and then it was awful. And then in order so we didn't have to feel. So this sin, guilt, and fear that we made up, so we didn't have to feel the love and light of God. Now we made up the world and all the images that mean nothing because they're not real. And we made them up in order to protect ourselves from having to experience the sin, guilt, and fear that we made up.
And the sin, guilt, and fear also includes my brother, my mother, my neighbor.
Well, those are just images. All of it is Christ.
Right.
So Mother Teresa used to say, "Here comes Christ in a particularly distressing disguise." That was very deep, wise thing for the woman to say. So who is your mother? She's Christ in a particularly distressing disguise. Who is your brother? It's Christ in a particularly distressing disguise.
I love it. I love it.
So it's all the light in a particularly distressing disguise, and it doesn't matter because the disguise isn't real. It can only be the light. There's only light. There's only love. And it's all that's ever here now in this moment is that light and awareness and truth.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. What was your second question?
Okay, the second question was, is there even any relevance to the word love or God? And if so, what? Or does it even really matter?
Well, it kind of has relevance when it's being compared to its opposite. But the real meaning of love is that it has no opposite. So there's only love. And therefore, what is love? It is just this. What is in this moment is the love, is the light, is the unity, is the oneness. And it's just appearing as images that mean nothing and there's no point to them.
Wow. Beautiful.
All is well. All is already well. That's why Ken used to say the only thing you should ever pray for is to realize there's nothing to pray for, because all of this is heaven. All of this is love. All of this is light. And it's just appearing as things that are absolutely harmless and they don't mean anything at all because it's still the light. Only the light is true.
That's a gem. I don't even have to pray because it already is.
Yeah.
Wow.
Praying. So, and Jesus talks about this in the Song of Prayer, whereby he's talking about praying for peace. And to do that, you have to make war real. You have to make unpeace real. So and this is the golden rule that the Course tries to teach us, is you don't make the error real and then look for a way to fix it. You understand that the error isn't real. You do nothing about it.
Wow.
Now, that doesn't mean your body mind wouldn't, contribute to a war, a war relief effort or something like that. But that's just still an appearance. It still doesn't mean anything. It's still just a movie. So it doesn't mean that wouldn't be what the body mind would do as a result of right-mindedness. It just wouldn't be taken seriously. It wouldn't be made a big deal out of because it's just a movie. Because Christ can't be crucified. There's no such thing as separateness. There's no such thing as death. There's no such thing as illness. There's no such thing as war. There is just one light. That's why Jesus says, Christ's vision has one law. It does not look upon a body and mistake it for the Son whom God created. It beholds a light beyond the body, an idea, beyond what can be touched. That's what we're seeing. That's where the bodies all become transparent and we just see the light that we are shining in everything and everyone, and all is already well. This already is salvation, no matter what the images are doing.
So my concern about paying the rent and paying my car note and paying the insurance, and not that I don't need to be concerned, but know that it already is and be at peace. And
yes, so it's all just the light only appearing as paying the rent and the district that I live in and everything else. And it's already whole only my opinions and judgments, which mean nothing, and they're not even mine, they're the ego's, because I can't judge. And so only that is veiling the fact that all of this is already wholeness. You see, we know we're there when it's the end of seeking.
Mm-hmm.
So if we're seeking, which is I need this to happen in order to be whole, I need this to happen in order to be better, I need this to happen in order to be peaceful, that just means that we don't know what we are in this moment. We have overlooked that in order to identify with a story of ourselves, an ego identity that thinks it's judging and thinks it has opinions on things. But that's not true, because this is what we are, this awareness, this stillness, this peace, this space in our mind. And all of that, the district I live in and the rent and the family situations, all of that is just this awareness, this light that I am, only appearing as these things that mean nothing, and it's still light. Now, again, Jackie, it doesn't mean that when you have this recognition of what you are, that you would stop paying your rent. Okay. It doesn't mean that. And it doesn't mean that you would stop trying to be there for your family. But it just means that the source of that action is very different. It's not coming from thoughts of fear and lack and making the error real and trying to fix it. Now it's coming from the place that all is well, that I need do nothing because nobody's in any danger. Everyone is immortal because it's the one light that the ego could never extinguish, the lie of the ego. So I just know this is the truth. And now right-minded action can flow through me, but I'm not invested in it. I'm not trying to save the world. I'm not trying to fix the world, because the world is light. It's already the light of heaven. It's already the light of God's Son. And so that right-minded action will happen, but it's not in order that I can be peaceful. And it's not in order that I can save God's Son from crucifixion, because he can't be crucified, but it is what will apparently happen.
Right.
So does that make sense? So again, it's just very important to grasp the significance that what I'm saying in the recognition of what you are, the truth of your being and the Holy Spirit, it's not the same as apathy.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. So
My
I don't
pleasure.
have to go into fear about paying
Exactly.
the bills, etc.
Exactly.
Yes,
Yeah.
I get it.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Jackie. Sharon, there you go. Everything has just been leading up to this point, apparently. There was no leading up to this. There was no past. There's just this.
So, okay. So I've been listening and trying to find the answer to my question. So I won't take everyone's time, but the question is about pain, and it's about chronic pain. And it's about seeing that as the light I am, and not doing anything about it. And then I just want to, if you don't mind, tell you what goes on. And I feel very afraid that I'll die. Now I understand that I'm not identifying with what's deathless. I'm not identifying with the peace. And my thoughts are very brittle and velcroed into this. And I do believe, even though I haven't experienced it, that the pain is a projection of my own sin, guilt, and fear onto my body.
Now, let's be very clear on this. So hold your thought in case I derail you there, Sharon, but this is a very important point, right? You, Sharon, are not projecting anything, all right? As the one wrong-minded consciousness, we created all the images, okay? And so it's not that you have to take responsibility. You haven't, you, the separate self, are not projecting anything, because there's no separate self, right? So it's not projecting anything. It's one of the projections, right? So again, Jesus, didn't, project his sin, guilt, and fear onto his body so that he would be tormented and sort of, tried and sort of jeered and tortured and crucified. Okay. That was something we, consciousness, came up with so we could see suffering and evil out in the world, but Jesus didn't do that, because there was no Jesus, right? Just like there's no Sharon to project things onto our body. So your task isn't to stop projecting onto your body, because your task is to know that you're not Sharon. Okay, your task is not to get rid of pain, but rather to know that what you are isn't in pain. So in the same way, when we rest in God, you know, the ego's, all the ego's darkness will now, we've popped the cork, and all the ego's darkness is going to come up before you who rest in God, in order that it can be healed for all eternity. So the only difference is that I'm not saying this is my anxiety. I'm saying, well, this is the ego's anxiety. I'm resting in God. And so I can allow this fireworks display, and in the allowing of it and feeling that it is not me, it is not, I am not qualified by this anxiety. The anxiety can't stand. It's healed and it's cleared for all eternity. So again, the fear of death is because you think you're Sharon. Okay, just this is the truth behind all the birthing and the suffering and the dying. There's just this. The images, there's always going to be images of like birth and suffering, dying. Just look at nature, look at the trees outside. Okay, there's all these images of empires rising and empires crumbling all the time. That's just how we made the images. But all the images are made out of what is eternal, what is love, what is truth. And that's what everything is made out of. So, pain was just something that we made up. And bodies was just something we made up. And a world was just something we made up. And, birthing and suffering and dying, just things we made up. And all of it is the one Christ. And so what I would say, and this was something that came up in the group, so you might want to check out that post, but this idea in Buddhism of the two arrows. So, I mean, the first thing is that within the appearances, we've made up pain. So pain is going to be a part of the appearances. And that's the first arrow. But the second arrow is suffering, and suffering is completely optional. Pain can be something I am aware of a pain within the field of the awareness that I am. But it's not me. I'm not the one that's in pain. Pain is what I am aware of in the field of the awareness that I am. Where all the suffering comes in is that it's happening to me. It's my pain. But that me doesn't exist. As Jesus says, it's just a concept that you made up. There's nobody in the movie. And so, again, what we want to do is get to a place where we can understand that the pain is just the light appearing as pain, but it doesn't mean anything and there's no point to it. So we don't have to be Sherlock Holmes. Again, the ego analyzes. The Holy Spirit, what does the Holy Spirit do? The Holy Spirit accepts. Doesn't do anything about it. That doesn't mean that within the appearances, you don't go see a doctor and take your medicine. That's just the appearances, right? But in your mind, you who are right-minded consciousness, you who rest in God, you who are joined with the Holy Spirit, it's looking on the ego's appearances and not making a big deal out of them. That's the end of suffering. Do you want to ask anything about that?
Wow.
So pain, there's an inevitability to some extent. It's part of what we made up, but suffering is completely optional. It means I have to overlook what I am as awareness in order to identify as a self made out of stories that's in the movie that the pain is happening to, and now I'm suffering.
Yeah.
So there's a difference between pain and suffering. Pain is simply a perceptual fact in the dream. Suffering is where I'm resisting it and going, it shouldn't be like this.
You got it. That's it. Bingo. That's the shouldn't be like this that identifies.
So again, shouldn't be like this is where the images that we made up that mean absolutely nothing. Now we've decided they mean something, even though they mean nothing. We've decided the meaning we want them to have is that they shouldn't be like this. And so now we're trying to do something. Now, again, this doesn't mean that within the appearances that you wouldn't go to a doctor and look, do whatever it is to be comfortable to the maximum of your ability. But it's just that in your mind, you understand that this is all made up. So the body is made up, the world is made up, the sickness, the pain is made up, and the medicine is made up. And you are just resting in God watching the movie. And all of it is just the light of Christ only appearing as a ridiculous movie we made. But it's still wholeness. It's still oneness. It's still unity. So that's just something to consider, is that the pain is a perceptual fact within the appearances we made up. Suffering is entirely optional. It's born of resistance. It's born of making the images real and now fighting them and resisting them and feeling like an innocent victim of them. That's what suffering is. That's optional.
My God, wow. Just had the thought of no hierarchy of illusions. I
Yes.
think what I'm doing is giving pain like the queen of all illusions. Doing okay with other ones, but gee, thank you.
Yeah. And so it's always about just realizing we're trying to do something about the darkness and going, oh, no, I need to do nothing about the darkness because it's nothing. And that frees us from all the effects of the darkness because it really is nothing. Thanks for that, Sharon. Guys, gosh, we've run way late as usual. Listen, everyone, thanks a million for your attention. We will be taking a small break. I'm on holidays, visiting the in-laws in Brazil. So we will not have a meeting for the next 2 weeks. But we will all be catching up in the group, I should say. I'll still be tipping in and out, even though I'm on holidays, and we will be returning to our meetings and podcasts after that. And just to say that I am appearing in the Miracle Networks one-day conference on the 11th, Saturday. So you can visit. I'll be doing that with Dov Fishman and with someone help me out with names again.
Lisa Natoli.
Lisa Natoli.
John Mundy.
John Mundy, that's right. Yes. Okay, very good. So if you're interested in catching that, you can find out about that on the Miracle Networks website. And I'll be coming to you from Brazil, the sun, because it's summer there. Again, thanks a million for your attention today. Everyone have a great Sunday, and we'll catch up soon.
Thanks so much, Keith.
Thank you so much.
Bye now.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank
you.